Okay, Daf Yomi continues, and it's sponsored this week by Reb Jeff and Rebitz and Chava Bela Wald, Lidli Neshmas, Jeff's uncle, Mr. Heinrich Wald, Chaim Ben Shmuel, whose yahrzeit is this Wednesday night and Thursday, the 24th of Tammuz. May his neshama have an aliyah.
Let's do a tikkun or something.
Ooh, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so be here.
Yeah.
Be here for that. That's a good thing. Make sure that you sign to us.
Pardon me?
When you doing the tikkun?
It's Wednesday night.
We'll do it Wednesday nights this year. That's what he's saying, yeah. Okay. Amar, we are at Amar of Yehuda. This is easy. It's second line from the top. Samach Gimel Amar Aleph. Amar of Yehuda. Back into the different types of birds, right? We had some categories. Birds, it's really difficult to follow by category because, as we said, there are 4 types of kosher things, but you don't need all of them. You may need one of them. Okay, so Amar of Yehuda. Yehuda says, Shekitna arichis shaki. The shekitna bird, that it has long legs. Vesumke, and they have red bodies, are sharia. Those are the kosher ones. Vesimanech, and the way that you can remember which type is kosher is murzima, right? That was a type of a bird that everybody knew was kosher, and it also had long legs and had a red body. And so if you've got this other, the shekitna bird, which has those same visual characteristics of the murzima, that should remind you that it's kosher. Gutse, if you find the ones that has short legs, vesumke, and it has a red body, then asiri, that is not kosher. Vesimanech, the way that you can remember that is the nonus is posel. The nonus was a bird that was short in stature. Nonus means somebody who's short. Right, a nonus could be a midget, right? Somebody who's a dwarf. Thank you. That's the right word for it. So the dwarf, right? So then that is somebody who is. So that is somebody who cannot serve in the Beis Hamikdash. It's a mum. So therefore, also a nonus. This bird that is short also is not kosher. Ariche shake, if it has long legs, v'yeroke, but it's got a green body. Asiri, that is not kosher. V'simonech, the way you should know that is yerukin psulin that we had before by talking about the internal organs of the animals that get burnt. If they turn green after getting burned, then that invalidates them. So also, just those as just signs to remember.
I like all these mnemonics.
Right, good mnemonic devices. I'm not remembering. Ask me which ones were from yesterday, and I'm giving the shy. So I'm Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says in the list of birds, shalach. On the list is the shalach. Zeh hashole dogim min hayam. This is a type of bird that hunts fish in the sea. You see,
they're not kosher bird.
They're not kosher. So the duchi, it's on the list of non-kosher birds, and the duchifas is hodu kafus, is the bird that its beauty is tied up. Right. They have a picture of the hoopoe bird on the bottom of the page because it has a comb that then can get folded back. Right. So Tanya Nami Hachi. We have a brice like this as well. That's the duchifas. Hodo kafus is the bird that its beauty is tied up. V'zehu shehevi shamir lebeis ha mikdash. The other thing that is nice to know about this duchifas bird.
Kosher, but it has the same thing.
Peacock is kosher.
Peacock is?
Yeah, I believe peacock is kosher. Interestingly enough.
Wow. It folds up in the back. I know that.
Right. So, this is the bird that is famous for helping Shlomo Melech get the shamir worm. In order to be able to cut the stones of the mizbeach, they couldn't use any metal. So the only way to cut them is they got this worm, shamir, that was able to cut through stone. Right, was able to excrete something from its body that cuts through stone. So Shlomo needed that in order to build the Beis Hamikdash. But where do you get such a thing? And the answer is the duchifas bird uses the shamir, captures the shamir, and uses it to grind into the rock in order to help it make its nest. So Shlomo Melech was able to capture a duchifas in order to be able to get the shamir. That's a story for another day.
Actually, peacocks are not considered kosher in practice.
Oh, they're not?
No.
Not in practice?
Not in practice.
Well, I guess in non-practice. If you're not in practice, in theory they're kosher.
Well, some historical texts mention peacock is a kosher bird.
There you go. So some will say, yeah, it's non-universal.
Is this duchifas you're saying is non?
It's non-kosher. It's on the list of non-kosher birds. Rabbi Yochanan, ki havachazi shalach. When Rabbi Yochanan would see this bird called the shalach, Amar, he would say, Mishpatecha tehom rabba. This is what the pasuk that says that your judgments are in the deep, right? That Hashem is even in the deep depth of the sea. Hashem will find you if needed. That's in Tehillim, and that is that of Hashem because he dives. This is a bird that dives into the water and swims underwater and catches fish. So, in other words, you'd think that you're a fish, you're safe, you're underwater from birds, and you are not. Ki hava chazi nimala. So when Rabbi Yochanan would see an ant, Amar, he would say about this pasuk in Tehillim, he would say, Amar tzidkascha keharei el. The pasuk is saying that your righteousness is like the great tall mountains, right? Because that Hashem is able to worry about every single little ant and every little creature in order to make sure that Hashem set up the world so that there would be food for every single individual creature. And that shows Hashem's greatness, that he is able to worry about every single little thing. Amar Amemar says, Lakne ubatne sharyon. The birds that are called the lakne and the batne, those are both kosher, right? Now, shaknai ubatnai, Makom shenagu lechol ochlin. Now the birds that are called the shaknai and the batnai, which are not the lakne, but they sound like it, the shaknai and the batnai, those birds, if they had the custom to eat them, so then you can eat them according to the custom of that place. Makom shenagu shelo lechol, but if they had the custom not to eat them, ein ochlim, you don't. So Gemara wants to know, Atu b'minhaga talim milsa, why should it be dependent on custom? Either they're kosher or they're not kosher. If somebody tells you that they're kosher, then you can eat them. It doesn't matter what your custom is. So the answer is it does matter because lo kasha, it's not a problem because haba asur d'shchichi peres ba'aznia, v'haba asur d'lo shchichi peres ba'aznia. Remember, we only have two types of non-kosher birds that have only one of the kosher symbols to them, and that's the peres and the aznia. And so these birds apparently had only one of the kosher symbols. So in a land where there was no peres and aznia, we were worried that people would confuse these birds for the peres and the aznia. So therefore, it's not that they weren't kosher, it's just that they decided that we'll make the rule, we're not going to eat these birds so that people won't become confused and eat the peres and the aznia. Whereas in a place where there were no peres and aznia birds, there was no need to make such a decree because there was no concern that people were going to eat it. Amar Abaye says, Ku'e v'kakue, Asiri. The birds that are called the ku'e and the kakue are both prohibited. You can't eat those. Kakuasa, sharia, but the bird called the kakuasa, I don't know if you have the kakatu, I don't know, but they're not kosher. So the kakuata is kosher, is b'ma'arava, in Eretz Yisrael, malku love. They would give malchus, they would give lashes, because they said it wasn't kosher. It's for sure not kosher. The karu law, and they said it's called the tachvasa. So tachvasa, which is a non-kosher, which is a animal they call, that's what's their name for it, and it's non-kosher. Okay, we should remind that there are two places that the okay, well, let's just say it there. Tana Rabban, Rabbi's one. Tin Shemes, the Torah lists the Tin Shemes as amongst the non-kosher birds in Vayikra Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Yud Ches, in that list. And it is Ba'us Sheba'ofos. It's the most disgusting of the birds. Right? The Tin Shemes. It screams out at night. So we often associate it with the owl. Right? It cries out at night. It's a nocturnal bird. So Ata Omer Ba'us Sheba'ofos. You say it's the most disgusting. Oina Ella Ba'us Shebeshrotzim. Or maybe the Tin Shemes, there's another word, Tin Shemes, in Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Lamed, which is talking about a type of creepy crawly lizard, or Tin Shemes, the mole. That's what we call it. It's a mole. That's one of the shrotzim. And so maybe it's disgusting. Maybe the Tin Shemes that is disgusting is the mole. That sounds more like it, right? So Amarta Tzeluman Mishloshes Midos Shatorah Nidreshes Behen. The answer is no, because you have to take a look at the Tin Shemes, which is listed in the birds, which we're going to say is disgusting, can't be talking about a mole because we have a rule in one of the 13 principles in which we derive psukim. It says davar halame minyano. We can figure what is something what it's talking about by the topic that it's being discussed in. And so therefore, b'mea kos medaber, when the pasuk is talking about this tinchemes, what is the topic of the pasuk? Be'ofos. It's talking about birds that are not kosher. So afkan be'ofos. So therefore, the tinchemes that we're talking about is a bird. And so therefore, the one that we're calling the bird that is disgusting, right, of the birds, is the bird tinchemes, which maybe is the owl. Tanya nami gabi shrotzim kahai gavna. Also, we have a brisa that talks about the shrotzim in the same way, right? That the tinchemes, which we said is a mole, is ba'us shebeshrotzim, is disgusting amongst the creatures, the creepy crawly creatures. Ata omer ba'us shebeshrotzim. You're going to tell me that it means it's one of the disgusting ones amongst the shrotzim. Oh, eino elo ba'us shebeofos. Or maybe it's talking about the bird, the tinchemes. So amart, so we can't say that because tzeilumad mishal shemido shator nedrashas bahan. We can figure it out from the 13 principles, which is davar halamed binyono. One thing is that you have to be able to look at the context in which something is written. B'mea kos ben naber, in that list of items in the end of Parak Aleph, pasuk lamed, it's talking about the 8 shrotzim. It's talking about b'shrotzim. So afkan b'shrotzim. So too, the tinchemes that's being talked about there is the mole, and that's disgusting. Amar Rabbi says, ba'us sheba'ofos kipuf. The most disgusting of the birds is the kipuf. That's the tinchemes, same bird. Ba'us shebeshrotzim is kurpadoi. And the most disgusting of the shrotzim is the kurpadoi, which is the tinchemes, which is listed in the Torah as well. It's just giving it names that they were more familiar with. Amar Rav Yehuda says, ka'as, the bird that is listed in the Torah, that is called the ka'as, which is not kosher, zu hakuk, is the cook. Maybe the cuckoo bird? I don't know, who knows, right? The cook. Racham zu shirakrak. And the racham is the bird called the shirakrak. Right? I'm not sure what those birds are.
The cook, they say, is maybe the pelican.
Okay, good. There we go. Cook is... the racham might be the pelican, I thought. Well, we'll see.
The cook, the 2-case form has the reading keek, which is described by the Gemara in
Oh, I see.
The water bird. And Reb Sadia Gaon and Ibn Janach indicate it's the pelican.
Okay, so there you go. Pelicans. Pelicans. Amar Rav Yochanan, Lama Nikro Shema Racham. Why is the Racham called the Racham? It sounds like it's merciful. Sheba Racham. Kevan Sheba Racham. Ba'u Rachamim Liolam. Because if you get this bird called the Racham, if you see one, that means mercy is coming to the world. It means it's going to rain. So these birds show up when it's about to rain. So you see them and you go, oh, that's good news, right? It means this bird is going to show us that it's going to rain. Amar of Bibi Barabai or Bibi says, V'hu de Yosef Amidi ve'avad shirakrak. That is, if it sits on, perches on a wire, I guess on something, perches on something, and it makes the noise, shrakrak. That's why it's called the shrakrak bird. That's
Shrakrak is no...
not shlakrak. If it sings shlakrak, that's a different type of bird. This is the shrakrak. It makes the noise shrakrak. So if it does that, then you know rain is coming. Ugmiri, and we have a tradition, the iyasiv ara, that if the shrakrak bird were to sit on the ground, visharik, and it would make its noise, right? So then, also Mashiach, that Mashiach is coming. Then that's really good, right? Shenamar's the pasuk in Zechariah says, Eshrekol lahem vakabtzein. Right? The pasuk says that in the future that there's a shrika, there'll be a cry out, which will be a sign for the geula. And so we have Mesorah, that is the shrika of this racham bird that is going to sit on the ground, and that is going to basically wait for us to know Mashiach is coming. Amali Rav Ada Bar Shimi Lemar Bar Rav Idoi. So there's always a story that follows up with it. So Rav Ada Bar Shimi says to Mar Bar Rav Idi, V'hahu de Yosef ki kravo v'sharak. There was once this bird. 1 second, how you tell me Mashiach is coming? I once saw this bird that sat on the ground and it started making the noise and it was shrak. And Mashiach didn't come. Not only that, a big stone came out of the sky, hit it in the head and smashed its head in. Right? So it sounds like it was hit by hailstorm or whatever it was. So it's making a noise. Mashiach didn't come and it got killed. So Amarle, so he answers back, Ahu bayadahava. He was a lying bird. So that was the lying bird. And so Hashem punished him and smashed his head in for trying to lie about Mashiach coming. I don't know what that means.
It's a truth bird.
That's right. Well, that's you have to make sure. Well, if it doesn't get smashed by a piece of hail, then it's probably a truth bird, right? If you know that you see a lying bird, right? Don't trust all the birds that you meet.
Lying birds.
Okay, so that's a rule.
Wild thorn.
Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis learned. Orev, ze orev, right? So we said, we had quoted this before, the orev is an orev. That's very useful. Es kol ha-orev, then it says in the pasuk, and all types of orevs, lahavi orev ha-imki. It comes to bring this other type of, the orev of the, I think it's the orev of the valley, I think. And lemino, of its type, is lahavi orev haba birasha yonim. It's the type of orev that comes in the front of all of the turtle doves. Right, not the turtles. We said yonim are pigeons, right? Yeah. Pigeons. I always get doves and pigeons because I always say yonim is dove, but it's not pigeon. Amar Mar, the Brisa says orev ze orev. So the first thing he says, an orev is an orev. Atu kaman kai. What do you mean? Orev ze orev means, it sounds like the guy saying an orev, which we says a crow. This is an orev. But like we don't have one sitting in front of us, so why does the Brisa start with that? This is an orev. We have no idea what you're talking about. Ella ema. What we mean is orev ze orev ukma. It means it's the regular, the standard crow, which is black, right? It means an orev that's in the Torah is the basic black crow that we know. V'cheinu omer, as the pasuk says in Shir Shirim, that kevutzosov teltalim shechoros keorev. That the kivyochel, that they have this anamorphic descriptions of Hashem, and that has black curls like an orev, like black, like it's a sign of youthful vigor. Right? Black curls. Ha-imki, right? So the imki, we say the one that, the orev that comes from the imki is chivara. It's a white crow. So, v'chein omer, as the pasuk says, and it's not completely white, it's mostly black, but it has white spots on it. That's that crow, that is also included. And as we know that, because it says, marehu amok mina, or it doesn't mean the one in the valley, it means amok, it has deep. And the reason why is because when we're talking about tsaras, light spots on a dark background look like they are deeper. They give you the illusion of depth, right? By looking at, if you're an artist, I guess, if you see that something is white, bright on a shadowy background, the bright part looks like it's further deep. Okay? So there are kamare chama hamuka minatzel, which it looks like if you've got a what do you call it? A shady backyard, and you've got one spot of sun there. The one sunny spot looks like it's deeper than the shady parts. Orev haba beroshe yonim. Then we say that there's an orev which also comes at the head of the pigeons. Samar of Papa lo tema da'asi berosh yonim. We don't mean to say that it comes whenever you've got pigeons coming. This crow shows up first. It means ela dedami reshe lediona. It has a head that looks like a pigeon. Right, its head and the pigeon's head look the same. It's just a crow with a pigeon head, because the rest of its body does not.
Would that be a mixed breed?
It is not. It is a unique type of a crow, but nevertheless also in the crow family and therefore not kosher. Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis learned. Ha-nates, right? The pasuk says that the bird that is not kosher is the nates, which we said was the sparrowhawk. I think was he said.
Yep.
Ze ha-nates. Okay, that is talking about the nates. Lemi nehu, of its type, is going to come to bring other types of birds that are similar to it. Lahavi as bar chirya. It's come to also bring the bird called the bar chirya into the mix. My bar chirya, what is the bar chirya? Amar Abaye. Abaye says it's the one called the shrinka bird. And I'm sorry, I'm not able to tell you what these are. I probably, if I told you the English word for it anyway, probably wouldn't know what that bird is anyway. So we'll go with shrinka. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, "Ha-chasida." This is the one I thought was the pun, right? The chasida is zu daya levana, is a white daya. Lama nikra shma chasida. Why is it called a chasida? She'osa chasidus im chavro seha, because it distributes food to all of its friends. And of course, that is the drush that is not listed here, but is why is on the non-kosher bird list, because it only takes care of its friends and leaves everybody out. Okay, so ha'anafa, the anafa is a izu daya ragzonis. It is the daya ragzonis bird. And lama nikra shema anafa.
What bird is that?
I do not know. Can help you with that. So lama nikra shema anafa. Why is it called the anafa? Shemina efes im chavroseha. Because it is aggressive and gets angry with all of the other, with its friends. I guess it starts fights with other birds. It's an aggressive type of bird. So that's what it's called. Okay, now, there are two places that the list of birds are listed. One is in Parsha Shmini in Vayikra Yud Aleph in Parsha Shmini. One is in Parsha Re'eh in Dvarim. Okay, so those are the two places. There are a few differences between the two places. First of all, in Parsha Shmini, there's a bird called Hada'ah, and there's no bird called Hara'ah. The Hara'ah is in Re'eh and not a Hada'ah. So those birds get switched. It's like a Dalet and a Resh switch. A Hara'ah is added and Hada'ah is taken away. And also in Shmini, it says Ha'ayah lemina, right? And it doesn't say, and the Hadayah bird is not listed at all. But in Parshas Re'eh, it says Ha'ayah ve'Hadayah lemina. So the extra one, Hadayah, is in there in Parshas Shmini. So there's one exchange, and then an extra bird, which is in Parshas Re'eh. Okay, so those are the distinctions, the differences, and we're going to want to know why are there differences? And not only that, but we've been saying all this time there's 24 birds, but there's 20 listed in Parshas Shmini, and in the extra one, this extra bird that's listed in Parshas Re'eh is only 21. So where do we get 24 from? So Amar le Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda le Rav Chisda. So Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda says to Rav Chisda, right? So he's talking to his son. So Rav Chanan says to his father, Dehecha. So he says, where do you get 24 birds from? Ida Vayikra, if you take a look in Sefer Vayikra, Parsha Shmini, Esrim Havu, there's only 20 there. Ida Mishnah Torah, if you're going to look in Dvarim, so then you're going to see that there's Esrim Vechad Havu, there's only 21. So where do you get 24 from? So V'chitema da'a deksiva b'Vayikra, v'lo ksiva b'Mishnah Torah. Maybe you're going to say, well, you have to take some birds that are not listed in both places. The da'a, as we said, it was listed in Vayikra, that's not listed in Dvarim. So that's an extra bird. So add that one to the list of Dvarim, Akasi Esrim V'Trein Havu, then you're only up to 22. Okay, so that's nice. But you're still only at 22, you're not all the way there. So Amar Leis, Rav Chisda said to his son, Hachi Amar Avua de'imach. This is what your mother's father said. And he's quoting his father-in-law, right? This is, right, I'm quoting your father-in-law, Mishmei de Rav. And he said it in the name of Rav. His father-in-law was Rav Chanan bar Rava. So it's possibly he was named after him, right? So he says in the name of Rav, Lemina, that if you add in, if you're talking in the Torah says Lemina, according to its one, right? It also says, and it also says by the Anafa. It says the Anafa Lemina, and it says Haya Lemina. Lemino, then it says the Oriv Lemino, and it says the Nates Leminehu. There are 4 times that it adds in and other types of birds of a similar species. So you take 20 that are listed in Vayikra, and then you add these 4. So Harekan Arba. So that it gives you 4 more. So that's 20 plus 4. That's where you get 24. Okay. So the Gemara wants to know, Ihachi. Well, then 1 second. What Rav Chanan said first was correct. He's got 21 in Dvarim. Then he added the extra bird that was only listed in Vayikra. That got us to 22. Now you're going to give me 4 more. So that Esrin V'Shishavu, that gives us 26. So that's not good. 26 is too many. So Amar Abaye explains, Da'a Ra'a Achasi. The answer is the Da'a and the Ra'a, those are not 2 different types of birds. It's the same bird, it's just, right? They are just 2 different names for the same bird. And so therefore, you're -1. You're down to 25. Okay? The Isak Tartin, and if you're going to hold both of them are different birds, so Michti. So let's take a look at this list then. Mishnah Torah la Sufehu Da'asa. Are you telling me that in Vayikra and in Dvarim there are more birds that are not kosher than in Vayikra? That doesn't make sense. So so you would have to ask the question, why would it be that in one list you'd have the da'a listed and not the ra'ah? It wouldn't make sense. Why would one have the list the ra'ah and not the da'a? El shmamina min ra'ah da'a achasi. The answer is the ra'ah and the da'a are the same bird. So therefore the fact that you have da'a listed in one and ra'ah listed in the other doesn't bother us. Okay, ask him, that's fine. You just eliminated one bird. You're still at 25. So what do we do with that? So Amar Abaye says, Kesem shera'a v'da'a achasi, just like the ra'ah and the da'a are the same bird, kach aya v'daya achasi. The daya and the aya are also the same bird. So, and they're both listed in Vayikra and in Dvarim as the aya and the daya.
Why they have two separate names?
So let's see. Right. So the answer is they were known in multiple ways, as that same bird was known in multiple ways. Because if you knew it as the ayah and the Torah said daya, you wouldn't think that that's listed. So this way, it's listed in both. So now, how do I know they can't be two separate birds? Because if you thought that they were two separate birds, michti, then let's take a look. Mishnah Torah lasuf ehudasa. It's only listed. One of those is only listed in Dvarim, right? So it says by the right. We said the ayah and the daya is listed in Dvarim. In Vayikra, it only lists the ayah. So what happened to the daya? The answer is the ayah is the daya, so then it doesn't have to be listed in Vayikra. And in one pasuk it says the ayah according to its kind, and the other parsha it says daya according to its kind. If they're not the same bird, so then now we've got other birds according to their kind. What's going on here? Ela shma mina, clearly it has to be ayah v'daya achasi. The ayah and the daya are the same bird. Okay, now, if the ayah and the daya are the same bird, now we're down to 24. So then we have to follow up. If the ayah and the daya are the same bird, lama le'lemichtav ayah v'daya. So it asks you this question. So then why do I have a pasuk that says the ayah and the daya according to its type, if they are the same bird? So the answer is Kidatanya. We learned in a brisa the answer to that question. Rabbi says, Ekra ani ayah. Right? I might have only needed to call it the ayah. I would know what bird it is. Daya lama nemra. Why does it have to say daya? Kedei shelo titem pischon peh lebalei din lachlok. So that we would not wind up being in a situation where people would get into an argument whether this type of bird is kosher or not. Shelo te'ata korei ayah v'hu korei daya. You call it an ayah, and this guy calls it a daya. Ata korei daya. You call it a daya. V'hu korei ayah. Tomato, and lekach kasav b'mishnah Torah.
Potato.
That's correct. Therefore, it says in Dvarim v'hara'ah v'ha'ayah v'ha'daya lamina. The ayah and the daya. It's the same bird, and therefore it's included, right? That way we just wouldn't have anybody getting a mistake, and thinking that the ayah is not the daya, it's the same bird, and therefore we list both names. But in order to make it clear that it's only one bird, in Vayikra, it's only listed as one bird, as an ayah. It's not listed as an ayah and a daya, because then you would make them for sure be two birds. Okay, so now, Meisvei. So we asked the following question, right? In a similar vein, that Lama Nishnu Behema, why is it that we need to have two times the list of kosher animals as well, Shmini and Re'eh? So Mibnei HaShesua. The answer is because in Parshas Re'eh, they add in the word Shesua. Now we said Mafres's Parsa Shesua is what if you look at the translation in the Chumash, it'll say Mafres's Parsa Shesua. It means a split hoof, and Shesua means completely split. So the only thing is that we had a mandamar, we had one opinion that said the shesua doesn't mean completely split. The shesua is the name of an animal, because it says a shesua v'hagamal, the camel is the next thing. The shesua is the first animal that has one of the categories of kosher animal, but not the other, in that it chews its cud, doesn't have split hooves. It's called the shesua over there, we explained, because it has two backbones. It has a split backbone, and I don't know what kind of animal that is, but that's the shesua. So why? So the shesua has to get listed. Ube'ofos, and why are the birds listed twice? Mipnei ha'ra'ah, because of the ra'ah, which is added in Parshas Re'eh, which is not in Parshas Shmini. So my lav so that's what's in it. So that's why the Torah adds these in order to add on this rule of the shesua. And in Parshas Re'eh, right, we're going to add in the ra'ah, which is not listed, which we said, according to this other opinion, was the ra'ah and the da'ah were the same bird. So my lav midid behema dahasam lasufe ofos nami osufe. So then let's figure out it's the same thing. If you're telling me that when it comes to animals, that the shesua is an additional, right? So then also the bird, the ra'ah, should be an additional bird. And we said it's the same bird as the da'ah. So then why does it mean the same thing? The answer is no, it is not. There by the animal, it's an additional type of animal, and here it's just explaining another name for the bird. Who plead the Rabbi Avo, and that disagrees with what Rabbi Avo says. Dama Rabbi Avo, as Rabbi Avo says, Ra'a zu ayah. He has a different way of explaining all of this. He says the Ra'a is the ayah. Before we said the ayah and the daya are the same, and the Ra'a and the da are the same. He says no, the Ra'a is the ayah. So V'lama nikra shema Ra'a. Why is it called a Ra'a? Because sheroa biyoser, because it has an exceptionally keen eyesight. It can see from very far away. V'chein Omer, that's what it says by Eov, when he's talking about Hashem's ability to know everything and see far. Nasiv lo yadu ha'ayit, but lo shezafatu ein ayah. That Eov is talking about. He's talking about the greatness of Sdom in this pasuk. Actually, talking about Sdom and Amorah, and he says that that no thieves went through their land and no spies were able to get through. And he explains because they're like even a vulture and a ayah, or long distance spies that can see from very far away, would not get away with spying on these great lands. So therefore you see that it's known for its great eyesight. And therefore he says the Ra and the ayah are the same bird. And so therefore the ayah, maybe he's saying that the da and the Ra and the ayah, it's all three names for the same one bird. And that solves the problem too. Tana, it says in the Brisa, Omedes beBavel, the Ra nevela be'Eretz Yisrael. One thing that we know about the ayah is it can be in Bavel, and it can see a dead animal carcass in Eretz Yisrael, because it feeds off of dead animal carcasses. So it has exceptionally good eyesight. Midra, Hainu, so that which Rabbi Avo says, that there's a bird called a Ra, is the ayah, his Hainu ayah is the ayah, Mikal Deda'a, Lav Hanu Ra. So that's not to exclude what I just said, right? So he says, if the Ra is the ayah, that means the da is not the Ra. Right? So, michti. So, what's going on here? So, Mishnah Torah la sufehu da'asa. So then I've got an extra bird again. Because I've got, if the Ra and if the ayah and the daya are separate, and the Ra is the same thing as the ayah, so now I'm left with the ayah, the da, and then the Ra ayah, which means I've got three birds here, and I'm back up to 25. So, are you telling me that in Devarim there's an extra bird? The da is an additional bird, so then why is it that it's only listed in Devarim and it's not listed in Shmini? Ella lav shmomino. We'd see from here da ra aya achasi, that all three are the same bird. Good, I had forgotten that. That comes up, right? That all three are the same bird. Umidara hanu aya mikal dedaya lav hanu aya. Now, if the ra is the ayah, and the ayah and the da is the ra, so we have to know that the daya is not the ayah anymore, because then we'd be too short, right? Then we have to go back and we have to answer the next question, which is why is it that it says in Shmini the ayah according to its types, and in Re'eh, it says the ayah and the daya according to its types, which sounds like its types is going on the daya. So why is it that its types goes on the daya if it's a different type of bird? Elishmamina, so we have to see, da v'ra daya v'aya achas. They're all the same type of bird, right? And so therefore, if that's the case, Rabbi Avo is holding there's only 23 types. And he disagrees with it's just disagreeing with what Rabbi Avo, what we said before, that there are 24 types. They're all one bird. Tanya, we learn in the Brisa, Isi ben Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Isi ben Yehuda says, Mea ofos tmein yesh b'mizrach. There are 100 types of non-kosher birds in the east. Vekulan min ayahin. And all of those birds are all subspecies of the ayah. Meaning there's tons. You might think, oh, there's only 24 non-kosher birds. No. There's tons of non-kosher birds. They're just subspecies of this non-kosher bird type. And a lot of them, 100 of them are even ayahs, let alone all the other types of birds. Because it says laminehu in the Torah, and wherever it says 4 times laminehu, it means those birds also have subspecies. Tani Avimi berei Rabbi Avo. So Avimi, the son of Rabbi Avo, says, Shva meos mini dagim hein. There are 700 types of non-kosher fish. Shmona meos mini chagavim. There are 800 types of grasshoppers or locusts, right? Ula ofos ein mispar. But there are so many types of birds They're talking about the different types of species we're talking about, but it sounds like we're talking about how many non-kosher types there are. Ofos esrim ve'arba havu, but there's not so many types. The Torah tells us there's only 24. Ella ul ofos tehorim in this part. We're saying there's so many types of kosher birds, uncountable. Right? Most birds are kosher. Right? We just don't have tradition. We don't eat them. Tanya, we learn a brisa. The Rabbi says, "Galui v'yadu lifnei misha amar v'hayolam." It is clear from the one who spoke and created the world. Shebehemet tamei meruba min hatahoros. There are way more non-kosher animals than there are kosher animals. Lafichach mana kasav b'tahora. Therefore, when the Torah lists what type of animals are kosher, which ones are not, it lists the kosher, tells you what animals are kosher. Galui v'yadu lifnei misha amar v'hayolam. Hashem knows that she'ofos tehorin merubin al hatmein. There are way more kosher birds than there are non-kosher birds. Lafichach, therefore, mana kasab b'tmein, the Torah goes and lists the non-kosher ones. Ma'ik mashmoan. What is that telling us? The answer is, Keder Rav Huna Amar Rav, like Rav Huna says the name of Rav, Dva Amri La Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav, Mishum Rabbi Meir, and some says Rav Huna said the name of Rav in the name of Rabbi Meir. Liolum Yishna Adam L'Talmido Derech Kitzara. When you're teaching, speak less. I won't say anything more about that.
If you're speak less?
Yes, the teacher should explain it in the simplest way possible, right? If the teacher has to go on and on and on about it, then that's not helpful. Conciseness, always the best way. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Of tahor nechal b'masores. The way we know which birds that you can eat, that's by tradition. Right? You don't have to be able to know if you know it's a kosher bird.
If I had to skin, that's easy to peel. What's this thing called again? The gizzard, right?
The gizzard. This is the crop.
Crop.
This is your Adam's apple. Birds have a crop. Right? Where would they correct?
The skin's easy to peel.
That's the gizzard, which is by the stomach. Correct. Nevertheless, we need to have a tradition as to which are the ones that are kosher. Okay. So, Ne'aman Hatzayid Lomar, a hunter. With people who would know, basically these were the scientists that knew their birds, right? So they're believed to say, Ov Zatar Masar Li, Rabbi, my teacher taught me this was a kosher bird. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, V'hu Shabaki Bahen. That makes him, that's only if this guy's Rebbe was an expert. So for them, and Ubishmoseim and their names. By Rabbi Zera says, Rabbo Chacham or Rabbo Tzayed. This hunter, his teacher, was he a rabbi? Or was his Rebbe also a hunter? Right? That's like being. So the answer is Tashma. Come and listen to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "V'hu baki bahen ubishmosehem." The person who's teaching him has to be somebody who's expert in the names of the birds and the birds. So yeah, Mar Shlomo Rabbi Tzayed. So fine, if he's a hunter also, Shapir, then that explains his Rebbe is an ornithologist. And so therefore he knows the birds. Ella iamart Rabbo Chacham, if his Rebbe is a Talmud Chacham, he's a rabbi, so Bishlam Shemayhu Gamerlu, fine, he knows the names because he learned. However, Ella inhu miyadu, he won't know which bird is which makes me feel a lot better, right? Because we read through the Gemara and I said I couldn't tell you which birds, right? That, of course, a Talmud Chacham wouldn't know which bird is which. Elav Shmamina Rabbo Tzayed. It means that this guy knows he's an expert in birds, and so therefore he knows which birds are which, and his Rebbe has to be an expert in birds as well. That's how he's believed, because he heard it from his Rebbe, who is an expert in which birds was which, so therefore he knows. Shmamina. That's the tradition. Tana Rabbanan, Rabbisman. Lochin beitzim min ha'ovdi kochav b'chol mokum. You can buy eggs without a hechsher. Okay, you can buy eggs from anybody without a hechsher.
So my eggs?
Yes, you don't ever see a hechsher on eggs.
Actually, cool eggs, you have a hechsher, but Zero didn't approve of those.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Vein choshishin lo mishum nevelos. What you don't have to worry about is maybe the bird was dead, right? Maybe the bird died on the farm, and then they opened up the chicken and they found an egg inside, and they put that into the dozen eggs, which would make that egg not kosher, right? It'll be a part of a nevela, right? Or lo mishum treifos. You also don't have to worry about the chicken was a treifa. And we said if the animal was a treifa, then the egg inside is also treifa, part of the animal we had discussed before, and therefore the egg would not be allowed. Well, v'dilma de'of tamein. So why don't you have to believe that? We don't have to worry about that because it is such a minority of circumstances that that's not normally the case. So therefore you don't have to worry about such a thing. V'dilma de'of tamein. Maybe it's from a non-kosher bird, right? You go buy eggs. Maybe they're selling you an ostrich egg instead of a chicken egg. Right?
Are ostriches non-kosher?
Non-kosher, yeah. That's bas ya'ana. We're going to talk about them in a moment. Ostriches are non-kosher.
Those eggs are like this big.
I know. I was going to say it's kind of you won't get away with that one. I was just trying to think. I don't know of a bird that has the same eggs looking, but we're going to see that they're different because Amar Avu de Shmuel's father said, "Be'omer shel of ploni tahor." right? The non-Jew has to be able to say that these are chicken eggs. If he tells you they're chicken eggs, so then they're chicken eggs, right? Because he's going to sell whatever egg it is. He doesn't know which ones you're going to buy. So if he says they're quail eggs, if he says they're pheasant eggs, he's going to say they're ostrich eggs. He's just selling ostrich eggs. So therefore, he's selling the eggs. As long as he tells you what the bird is, then you can decide whether they're kosher or they're non-kosher. Velema shel of tahor. Well, right. So then, why does he have to tell you which bird it is? Why doesn't he just say they're kosher? If he tells you they're kosher, that should be enough. So the answer is ihachi islay lishtimuti. Then he can lie, right? Because he might be selling non-kosher. He sees you're Jewish, and he says, "No, they're kosher." Right? Well, of course, you're saying they're kosher, right? Because you're trying to sell them to me. But the thing is that if you could tell me which type of bird it is, he has no idea which birds are kosher, which ones are not. So if he tells me which bird it's from, then I can trust that because he must be telling the truth. Because it's got to be. Because not only that, but I can look and see, as he said, ostrich eggs don't look like chicken eggs. No. So therefore, ultimately, you sell me a little blue egg, and I know I can compare that to chicken eggs and know that that is not a chicken egg, and he's not going to get away with it. Mm-hmm. So therefore, as long as he tells me what kind of bird it's from, I can believe it. Velivdok besimonim. So then, why don't we just check? If he tells us that if he's telling us that it's from, why don't you just look at the egg and you can see whether it's kosher? There are ways to see an egg is kosher or not. The Tanyas we learn in a brisa, kesimoni beitzim kach simoni dagim. That there are ways to be able to check an egg to see if it comes from a kosher bird, right? Just like there are ways to check a fish to see if it's kosher fish.
How can you tell the if an egg comes from a kosher bird or not?
We'll tell you in a second. You got to hang on, right? Sounds like they're saying it's fins and scales, right? Yeah. Simoni dogim salko daitach. What you're supposed to be snapper v'kaskesas amarachmana. The Torah tells me my egg has to have fins and scales in order to be able to know. So Ella Ema, what we mean is kach simone. Ubare dogim, you can also tell by looking at fish eggs also if they're kosher or not. So you can know kosher roe, that's what they call it, right? Roe, that's the caviar, right?
Oh, caviar, yeah.
Right. So you can tell if it's from a kosher animal or not by also you can investigate and look at the eggs similarly as you're looking at bird eggs and tell. So Vitanya, we learn in Brisa. Gabi beitzim, by bird eggs, Eluhein simoni beitzim. This is the way you can tell if they're kosher. Kol shekadores ve'agul goles. So if they are round and right, but they are oblong, right? They're oval shaped. They're not completely round. There's like birds that have completely round eggs. Those are not kosher. Rosha echad kad. One side of it is round and one echad chad and one is sharp, right? So you basically egg shaped. Is that right? It's round on one side, pointy on the other, right? Like an egg. So tahora, then that is a kosher bird. Shnei rosheh kadin o shnei rosheh had chadin. If both sides are round or both sides are pointy, tamein it's a non-kosher bird. Okay. Then chelbon mibachutz. If you take a look, the albumin, that's the egg white. That egg white is on the outside of the egg. So then chelmon mibafnim. Then if the chelbon is on the inside, so then it's tahora, then it's kosher. Chelmon mibachutz, if the albumin is on the outside, chelmon mibafnim, and the yolk is on the inside. Sorry, the other way around. If the albumin is on the outside, the yolk is on the inside, then it's not. Then it's kosher.
As long as you don't have the blood on the yolk.
We're going to deal with that in a moment. Blood is coming up, right? Chelmon vechelbon me'uravin zebazeh. If you have an egg that the yolk and the egg white is all mixed up together when you crack it open, be'adua shehi beitzas hasheretz. That's not a bird egg. That would be an egg that would be from one of the shrotzim. A toad or a turtle. Right, toads don't. Yeah, toads lay eggs. Yes, they do. A turtle egg, it could be, or something like that. Those eggs are all mixed up on the inside. They're not. They don't look like they have distinct yolks and whites. So, therefore, I can. Why do I have to know what kind of bird it came from? I can look at the egg itself and know whether it's kosher egg or not. So the answer is lo tzricha dechatuchos. We could wind up with a circumstance where the eggs are cut, and therefore you can't tell whether both sides are the same or not. or what the yolk looks like on the inside, they're selling the omelet, right? Then you wouldn't be able to tell.
The yolk from what?
I'm saying the yolk from an omelet, right? Let's say they're selling omelets, right? Right? Then you can't tell what shape the egg was or what configuration the yolks were in. So then v'livdok bechamon v'chalbon. Well, I guess the answer is they're giving what if it's chopped in half? So I wouldn't know. But why don't I take a look at the yolk and the egg white, and I can tell also. The answer is betrufos bekar. They're mixed up in the plate, right? He mixed up like that's where it's the omelet.
Also, right, that you can buy in a carton.
Right, they sell it at the carton, right? So that would be how you wouldn't be able to know. Who sells eggs like that, right?
Shoppers.
Right. Would you be able to buy that? So basically, you're buying a mixed up egg from a non-Jew. V'hatanya, we're in a brisa. Ein mochrin beitzas trefa. You're not allowed to sell an egg that is a trefa to a non-Jew, elim kain terufa bekara, unless it's already scrambled up. Because nobody would buy a scrambled up egg from the non-Jew anyway, and so therefore, so that's the point, right? Why this non-Jew's trying to sell me a scrambled egg? Maybe he's selling me a trefa egg that he bought, right? So therefore, lefichach ein lochin mehem beitzim trufos bekara. Therefore, you can't ever buy from a non-Jew scrambled eggs. Right? Because if you buy this mixed up egg, then it could have been purchased from a Jew. Ella amar bizera simonim lav deoraisa. The answer is that these are not really halachah Moshe Sinai. These were only things that they were allowing us to rely on, so that we would be able to buy eggs in the store. Right? So if the bottom line is, if the non-Jew tells you it's from a kosher bird, then I can verify them by looking at them, and all of those things together can help me know that it's a kosher egg. If you don't say that, Hadam Ravasi, that's what Ravasi says, Shmona Svekos Hain, there were 8 types of birds that they were having a discussion about whether they were kosher or not. So why were you having a discussion whether they were kosher or not? Liv dok b'beitzim dehu. Just have them lay eggs, and then you can check the eggs, and then you'll know if they're kosher or not. Clearly, the signs don't prove whether something is kosher or not by the egg. So then what is the point of mentioning these eggs if they don't really prove whether they're kosher or not? This is what it means. Shnei rosheha kadin, if you have an egg that's round on both sides, or shnei rosheha kadin, or it's pointy on both sides, o chelmon mibachutz vechelbon mibifnim, or if the yolk is on the outside and the egg white is on the inside, vaday tmea, those are for sure not kosher. However, you could also have a bird that has regular egg-shaped eggs with the yolk on the inside, and they also could be not kosher, but you don't know. Reishe chad chad, if one of the sides is pointy, one of them is round, v'chelbon mibachutz v'chelbon mibifnim, and the egg white is on the outside and the egg yolk is inside, v'amar l'chashel of ploni, and then the non-Jew says, this is a chicken egg, Taharhu, and it's kosher, samoch alehem, then you can rely on it.
You say it's a non-Jew selling a chicken egg, right?
That's correct. So if I go to the store and I've got a dozen chicken eggs, and I open the container and they all look like chicken eggs, then I can presume they're chicken eggs. Bistama, however, if he's just selling the eggs and it doesn't clearly indicate that they're chicken eggs, lo tismochlim, you cannot rely on them. Because there are some types of crow's eggs that are similar to pigeon's eggs. And pigeon's eggs are kosher and crow's eggs are not. So Amar Mar. So Mar said, Chalbon v'chalmon mu'ravin. If you've got the egg yolk and the egg white are all mixed up, zebazet together, b'yadu shui beitzas hasheretz, then I know that this is a sheretz egg. This is one of the creepy crawly creatures. Lemay hilchasa. So what is the practical halakha that comes out from that? So Amar Rav Ukva Bar Chama, Rav Ukva Bar Chama says, Lomar she'im rikma, that if you've got this v'nikva, if you've got a fertilized egg of a sheretz, and then there's a poke in the shell, a hole in the shell, so then, and you've got mitama bekadosha, then if the embryo inside the egg is the size of a lentil, then it can transmit tumah. Because we said that the shratim can transmit tumah. And so therefore, that's what you have to worry about. So, Maskif lo Ravina. Ravina asks the following question. Vidilma denachashi. How do you know it's not a snake egg? Snake eggs also look like the same thing, and so therefore, how do you know it's one of the tamei shratim? Maybe it's a snake egg, which is not tamei. Ella Amarav, Rav says she'im rikma ve'achla. The answer is because if it breaks open, and you eat it, You're going to be getting lashes for a creepy crawly creature that crawls on the ground, not a bird, not a non-kosher bird, because snakes are included in that too. What difference does it make? Because we learned in Maseches Malkos that you have to give a warning before you get Malkos. And the warning is you have to actually tell a person, you're in violation of the following Aveira. Well, if you warn him, hey, you're going to be in violation of eating a non-kosher bird, and in fact, it's not a non-kosher bird that he's eating, it's a non-kosher snake that he's eating, then he doesn't get lashes. Because it's not the right warning. Ihachi, if that's true, so if that's the case, so then why are you talking about a non-kosher one, even a kosher one, right? You're not allowed to eat, right? Because the Tanya is in a brisa. Any creepy crawly creature that crawls on the ground, l'rabos efrochim, even if it's a bird, it's in that category of creepy crawly creatures. Shalom niftuch einayim, if its eyes don't open, meaning an egg, a chick that just hatches is in the category. If you eat that, is in the category of a sheretz, and it's a violation. So the answer is,
how could you call a baby bird? You just hatched a creepy crawly.
Because midrabanan, it was only a rabbinic law. So what they did was they took a look, and if you've ever seen a newborn chick, they look gross, they look little moles, right? So therefore, since they look similar, they said, don't eat those. And they made a derabanan. And what about the pasuk that you quoted? Ukros machta biyama. The pasuk is just a hint, right? To be able to make people remember it, but it really isn't the halacha. Tana Rabbanan, our rabbis learned, Gi'ule beitzim, if I've got non-kosher birds, eggs, and I put it in the same pot and I boil it, make hard-boiled eggs, together with a kosher bird's egg. So mutaros, they don't transmit the taste and make the chicken egg not kosher. So if they cook kosher eggs and non-kosher eggs together, the taste doesn't come out from the non-kosher egg and get into the kosher egg and make it treif. Beitzim muzaros, if you've got an addled egg, right, which is an egg that basically is not fertilized, and it eventually starts to go bad. Nefesh yafa toklim. If you've got a strong constitution, you can eat that, right? Because right, as long as because there's nothing wrong, there's nothing non-kosher about it. It's just disgusting. Nimta aleha koret dam. This is Yehuda's point. If you find any blood in the egg, zorek es hadam ve'ochas hashar. In an unfertilized egg, if you find a drop of blood in it, so then you could scoop that piece of blood out and eat the rest of the egg. Because it's not an embryo, because it's not fertilized. And in that circumstance, what happened is that it started to congeal or whatever else was going on as the egg started to go bad. So therefore, this slightly rotten egg has got little spots in it. That you should just get rid of, and it's not a problem.
So in egg, you have two sets of blood. You have red and you have a purple one as well.
Oh yeah?
Egg.
I don't know, I'm colorblind. I will take your word for that. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, "V'hu shenimtza al kesher shalah." The halacha that we learned in a brisa that you can eat the rest of the egg is only if you find the blood spot in the connecting the part in the connection. There's a great picture in the art scroll on the bottom where the egg has like a white line that connects to the yolk, and that part where the white connects to the yolk, that's where fertilization occurs. And therefore, that's the part where a blood spot will develop first. So he says, if you see a blood spot there, then you can just scoop that out and get rid of it. And the reason why is because if you've got the blood spot there and you scoop it out, you've just gotten rid of the embryo and you're fine. However, if the blood spot is found other places in the egg, then this embryo has started to grow and then the entire egg is not kosher. Then you've got to dispose of the entire egg. So that's why when we check for eggs, we check any blood spot, we throw out the entire egg. You can't just get rid of the blood spot. The entire egg is not kosher because you're eating a chicken egg embryo. So the question is that really eating like a non-kosher chicken? What's going on there? And the answer is it might even be d'Rabbanan, and some people will say it's a d'oraisa because it is basically eating a chicken embryo. That is not kosher. Blood from it. So you throw out the whole egg. That's correct. So that's what you said. You can only throw out the one spot is if you find it right in that one little speck, like it was just fertilized. Tani Dostoi Avud Rabbi Aptoriki. So Dostoi, the father of Rabbi Aptoriki, said, Lo shanu elish nimtza al chelbon shalah. If you find this little bit of blood on the yolk of al nimtza al chelbon shalah, but if you find it somewhere else in the egg white, so then afilu beitzasur, the entire egg is prohibited. My time why? Deshada tichla bekule, because the embryo is now throughout the egg. and is starting to grow. Amar Rav Geviha mi Bei Kasil, Rav Geviha from the place called Bei Kasil, Ravash said to Ravashi, Ibcha Tani Tana Kamei Dabai. They had taught the reverse, that it was fine if it was in the egg white, not in the egg yolk. But Abaye corrected it and put it back in its proper way. Amar Chizkiah says, Minayin lebeitas tmeya shehi asur min Torah. How do I know that a non-kosher bird egg is not allowed in the Torah? Shnamar, as the pasuk says, Ves bas hayana, the daughter of the ostrich. V'chi bas yesh liyano, like daughter. Ostriches have daughters. What are we talking about? Ella ezozu. What are we talking about? Beitza tmeya. We're saying the daughter of the ostrich is the egg of an ostrich is not kosher. So the dilma hashmaihu. Maybe the name of the bird is the basiana. Maybe basiana is not the egg of the yana, but it's the basiana is the name of the bird. Lo sal kadaitach. Don't think that because chsiv in Eicha it talks about the ostriches basami lachzar kiyanim b'midbar, that my nation has become wild or disrespectful like the wild ostriches in the desert. They're not nice birds. Velo, so therefore it's called the yana, not the basiana. So the yana is the ostrich. The basiana is the egg of the ostrich. Velo, 1 second, are you really sure? V'haksif, if you look at Micha, it says esemisped katanim ve'evel kivnos yana, that we will make a eulogy like the jackals and we will mourn like the ostrich. Ostriches are very quiet, so it looks like they're always in mourning. So therefore, that is the simile there. We'll be mourning and quiet like an ostrich. But it calls them a benosiana, and benosiana means that's the name of the bird. Is the basiana. V'aksiv. But 1 second, another pasuk it says in Yeshaya, v'shachnu sham benosiana, that in your houses, in your destroyed areas, they will live there, that the animals will live there like the benosiana, the ostriches, they dwell there and they'll make their nests there. So the answer is, keyana, that both means, I skipped a line. Keyana zu misabelas al, that the yana, we said before, is called the benosiana because it's like the yana, which is the real name for it, that is mourning for its children. And then the next one is, it says v'shachnu sham benosiana, it's also called the benosiana there. And the answer is keyana zu sheshechenes al. It's a nesting yana, it doesn't move from its location. So therefore, really, the yana is the name of the bird, the bas yana is a description. But in Yeshaya also it says that Techabdeni Chayas Asadeh Tanim Ubnos Yana. So there it's also called the Bas Yana. V'isako daitach beitza. Talk about an eggs, beitza bas meimar shirahi. The egg wouldn't be speaking and praising Hashem. So it's not talking about the egg. So it's talking about the ostrich itself. So the ostrich must be called the Bas Yana. Elaksiv Hayan. Rather, the ostrich is named both. It has both. It can be called the Yana and it also can be called the Bas Yana. Both can be referred to in Psukim. Shani Hacha, but here, the pasuk safra l'shtei tevos in the Torah where it calls it a bas yana, I know it's not talking about the ostrich, which is the yana, bas yana, the egg, because it's in 2 words. So word 1 is yana. If it was bas yana, 1 word, then I would say that's the name, the ostrich. But it says bas yana, 2 words, so therefore it indicates the yana is the ostrich. The bas yana is the egg of the ostrich. Midepsik lehu safra betarti tevos shmamina tre shemos ninhu. Just because it's listed as 2 words, you're telling me it's 2 different names. Shmamina tre shemos. So yeah, but ella meata. If that's what you're saying is true, is when you see something as 2 names, it means 2 different things. Es Kedar Laomer. What if you look in Bereshis and it lists the names of the kings and it says Kedar Laomer, and Kedar Laomer is written as 2 words. The pasuk hu safra betray. If there's a space in between, Sachinami Tartin Shmei Ninhu, is that 2 different names? It's only 1 name. So therefore, you can have 2 words be 1 name. So Omri, so we say the difference is Hosam over there, Bishtei Tevos Psik Lahu, Bishnei Shitin Lo Psik Lahu. You're right, it's 2 words, but Halach of Sefer Torah, you cannot write Kedar on 1 line and Laomer on the next line. Kedar Laomer, even though there's a space, has to be written on the same line. Ava here, Ava Hacha, Afila B'shnei Shitin Nami Psik Lahu. The Bas Yana can be written on 2 different lines, indicating that Bas is 1 word and Yana is the other, so it's the daughter of the ostrich. So basically, from the word Bas Yana, we know you can't eat eggs from non-kosher birds.
Oh yeah, beautiful.